The bus stop bench was hard and cold against my back as I clutched the handle of my old suitcase. My life's belongings had been reduced to a single bag and a few photo albums shoved into it by my daughter, Cassandra. After 72 years of sacrifices, loyalty, and love, I found myself sitting under the blazing sun, waiting for a bus that had no destination in my heart. After giving her everything, raising her children, feeding her household, standing by her through divorce and heartbreak, my own flesh and blood tossed me out like garbage. She had just inherited wealth beyond imagination, $33 million, and with it came a cruel arrogance that stripped me of my home, my dignity, and my place in the family. But what she didn't know was this. Within 3 days, the same daughter who threw me out without hesitation would be on her knees, begging for my help. And when that moment came, it wouldn't be money that decided her fate. It would be the strength of a mother she had betrayed. If you're just tuning to this channel, please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more life-changing stories that carry powerful lessons. Have you ever given everything you had to someone, only to be cast aside the moment they no longer needed you? Have you ever looked into the eyes of your own child and seen a stranger staring back? That was my reality the day Cassandra, my only daughter, told me to pack my things and leave. Her fortune came overnight. One day, she was struggling to pay bills. The next, she held a check so large that neighbors, reporters, and lawyers swarmed our little house like bees to honey. $33 million. A figure that could change generations. But instead of bringing us closer, that money built a wall between us. Attention fades quickly when wealth blinds the heart. She didn't want my cooking, my care, or my comfort anymore. She wanted me gone. But here's the truth. Money can buy silence, cars, and mansions, but it cannot erase consequences. Cassandra believed she had one freedom. What she didn't know was that her so-called fortune carried a deadly secret that would soon turn her world upside down. 3 days. That's all it took for Cassandra's perfect new life to collapse. While I sat alone, humiliated and abandoned, she was already drowning in a storm of her own making. The same daughter who told me there was a bus stop at the end of the street would soon call that very bus stop, her voice trembling, her pride shattered, begging me to save her and the grandchildren. I want you to think about this. Have you ever seen how quickly wealth can twist family bonds? How fast gratitude turns into greed, and love into rejection? For years, I believed loyalty was enough to keep us together. But one lottery ticket proved me wrong. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. Have you ever watched money tear families apart? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button too. It helps this story reach more people who may need its lesson. Stay with me, because Cassandra's betrayal was only the beginning. What seemed like fortune was actually a curse, one that brought danger to her doorstep and forced her to come crawling back to the mother she had thrown away. My name is Lillian, and I am 72 years old. Life has never been simple, but I never expected the deepest pain to come from my own daughter. Before everything collapsed, my days followed a humble routine. I woke early, cooked breakfast for the family, and prepared Mark and Lily, my 2 grandchildren, for school. Their laughter filled the rooms, and their little arms around my neck reminded me that love was still alive in this house. I had buried my husband of 50 years, Robert, a man whose quiet steadiness was the anchor of my life. Losing him left me with more than grief. It left me with bills I couldn't pay on my own. Cassandra, my only child, insisted I move in with her. "Just until you get back on your feet, Mom," she told me. Those words warmed my heart at the time. I thought it was kindness, a chance for us to heal together. But my role in her home was never simply that of a guest. I cooked, cleaned, washed clothes, and stayed home whenever the children were sick. I was her safety net, the person she relied on without hesitation. I thought we were partners, bound by love and respect. Cassandra's life had never been easy. She married young, full of hope, only to watch her husband walk away when responsibility became too heavy for him. The divorce left her bitter and stretched thin. She juggled work, bills, and parenting 2 children with very little help. I stepped in, filling the gaps, holding her family together when she could not. I told myself that was what mothers did. You give until there's nothing left to give. Still, I worried for her. The late nights spent at her office, The unpaid bills piling on the counter, the exhaustion etched into her face. I carried those worries on my own shoulders. When she snapped at me, I reminded myself she was under pressure. When she leaned too heavily on me, I told myself it was temporary. Then came the day that changed everything. Cassandra walked through the door, her hands shaking, tears running down her face. I thought tragedy had struck. But when she finally spoke, her voice cracked not from sorrow, but from shock. She claimed she had won the lottery. $33 million. A number so large it hardly seemed real. The house erupted with joy when Cassandra announced the news. We hugged, we cried, we laughed until our stomachs hurt. For the first time since Robert's passing, I felt a weight lift off my chest. Cassandra twirled the children around the kitchen, their giggles echoing against the walls. She spoke of vacations, new clothes for the kids, and finally paying off the mountain of debt that had haunted her for years. Neighbors came to congratulate her, reporters called nonstop, and lawyers circled like vultures, each one eager to claim a piece of her fortune. Through it all, I stood by her side. I answered the door, handled the phone, and shielded her from the chaos. While she smiled for cameras, I made sure her children had warm meals and a sense of stability. For a brief moment, it felt like this windfall would heal the cracks in our family. Cassandra promised to take care of me, to make sure I never had to work another day in my life. I believed her. I thought money had finally given her peace, and in turn, she would give us unity. I was wrong. The joy was only temporary, and it faded faster than I ever imagined. The first signs of change were small, almost easy to excuse. Cassandra began taking short trips, weekend getaways with new friends I had never met. At first, she returned with smiles and little souvenirs for me, a scarf, a bottle of perfume, a trinket here and there. I thanked her, but deep down the gifts felt less like love and more like payment, as if my presence in her home had become a service rather than a bond. Soon the trips became longer. She bought designer clothes, hired personal trainers, and spoke with financial advisors behind closed doors. Meals we once shared at the kitchen table were replaced by her dining out at expensive restaurants. The children still came to me for bedtime stories and comfort when they had nightmares, but even they began to sense the distance growing between their mother and me. The house that had once felt like a refuge slowly turned cold. Conversations became shorter, her eyes busier with her phone than with me. The warmth of our late-night talks vanished. Where there had once been a daughter leaning on her mother, there now stood a woman convinced she no longer needed me. The final blow came without warning. One afternoon, I returned from my shift at the library to find my belongings stacked neatly by the door. My husband's armchair, the photo albums I cherished, and my worn suitcase, all waiting as if I were an unwanted guest checking out of a hotel. Cassandra stood in the living room, her arms crossed, her expression firm and unyielding. Mark and Lily lingered behind her, their eyes wide with confusion. "Mom," she said flatly, "I've bought a new house in Atlanta. It's safer for the kids, and it's time for you to find your own place." My voice trembled. "But where am I supposed to go?" She shrugged, her tone colder than the winter wind. "There's a bus stop at the end of the street. You'll figure it out. You always do." Her words sliced through me. I wanted to fight, to remind her of every sacrifice I had made, but the finality in her gaze told me it was useless. So I gathered my dignity, lifted my suitcase, and walked out the door. At the bus stop, under the harsh afternoon sun, I sat alone, discarded, humiliated, and heartbroken. The bus pulled up with a hiss, and I was moments away from leaving that street, that life, and the daughter who had discarded me. My hand tightened around the handle of my suitcase. Just as I rose to board, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Cassandra's name lit up the screen. For a heartbeat, I considered letting it ring. She had made her choice. She wanted me gone. Why should I answer? But something in me, a mother's instinct that never truly dies, pushed my thumb toward the green button. Her voice hit me like a blow. "Mom. Oh God, Mom, please. You have to help me," she sobbed, words tumbling out in panic. "They're coming for me. I never should have. I thought I could handle it, but now they'll kill me." I froze, torn between anger and fear. Just hours earlier, she had thrown me out without hesitation. Now, she was begging for the mother she had abandoned. Her tears were real, her terror unmistakable. The betrayal still burned, yet my heart clenched at the sound of her desperation. "Cassandra, slow down," I said, my voice barely steady. "What are you talking about?" Her sobs cracked through the line. "It wasn't the lottery, Mom." I lied. The money came from an investment, a deal I thought would change everything. But it was dirty. I didn't realize who I was dealing with. They want it back. They think I cheated them, and now they're after me. The world tilted under me. $33 million, and all along it hadn't been a stroke of luck. It was a trap. I could hear her breathing hard, her words tumbling out between gasps. "They've been watching me. They know I have kids. They'll use Mark and Lily to get to me. I don't know where to turn. Please, Mom, I need you." I stood frozen at the bus stop, shame and fury colliding inside me. She had lied to me, cast me out like a stranger, and now she expected me to clean up the mess of her greed. Yet the thought of my grandchildren, innocent and defenseless, made my knees weak. I could abandon her, but could I abandon them? "Who are they?" I asked, my throat tight, though I already feared the answer. "I can't say over the phone," Cassandra whispered. Her voice shook with terror. "They're powerful people, Mom. The kind who don't go to court. They go after families. They think I'm hiding money from them, and they won't stop until they've broken me. Please, you have to help. You're the only one I can trust." The line between us crackled with silence after her words. My heart slammed against my chest. Images of Mark's gentle smile and Lily's bright eyes filled my mind. Two children who had no part in their mother's reckless choices were now in danger because of them. The bitterness of betrayal fought against the instinct to protect. I wanted to scream at her, remind her of how she had packed my things and pushed me out like I was nothing. But how could I let her children, my grandchildren, become pawns in this nightmare? As much as I wanted to hang up, I knew the truth. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was still a grandmother, and their safety meant more than my pride. I sat motionless on that bus stop bench, clutching the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. My mind screamed at me to hang up, to let Cassandra face the storm she had invited into her life. She had stripped me of my dignity, shown me the door, and left me standing in the heat like a discarded stranger. Part of me longed to let her taste the consequences of her choices. But another part of me, older, deeper, and impossible to silence, reminded me that Cassandra wasn't the only one in danger. Mark and Lily's faces flashed before me. Their laughter, their small hands tugging at mine, their whispers when I tucked them into bed. They were innocent, yet now at risk of being used as leverage. The anger I felt toward Cassandra was sharp and raw, but it was no match for the love I carried for those children. My pride wanted to walk away. My heart wouldn't let me. I closed my eyes, exhaling the weight of a choice I already knew I would make. No matter how far Cassandra had fallen, no matter how she had treated me, I could not abandon her children. "I'm at the bus stop near the house," I finally said, my voice low and heavy. "I don't have a way to get to Atlanta." Relief poured through her sobs. "I'll send a car. Just stay there, Mom. Please, don't leave me." I ended the call and sat back on the bench, my suitcase at my feet. The heat of the sun pressed down, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside me. Every instinct screamed that this was madness. Cassandra had made her choices. She had chosen wealth over family, pride over gratitude, and now her recklessness was dragging me into something I didn't understand. But beneath the anger, a quiet voice spoke. It wasn't Cassandra's tears that convinced me. It was the thought of Mark and Lily. If men were truly watching her, if danger was circling their home, I had no choice. I couldn't let my grandchildren become casualties of their mother's mistakes. So I sat there, waiting for whatever vehicle Cassandra was sending. My heart was torn, my dignity bruised, but my resolve was clear. I would step back into her chaos. Not for her, for the children. Always for the children. The minutes dragged like hours until a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. The driver stepped out without a word, holding a sign with my name on it. The sight of the car alone was enough to remind me of how far Cassandra's world had shifted from ours, luxury at her fingertips, yet desperation in her voice. I hesitated before climbing in. My pride told me to walk away, to let her learn that wealth without wisdom only leads to ruin. But my heart knew I couldn't risk my grandchildren's safety. With a deep breath, I slid into the back seat, my suitcase beside me, my future uncertain. Before I take you further, let me ask you something. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you walk away after such betrayal, or would you risk everything to protect your family? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe, because your support helps us keep these stories alive. As the car pulled away from the bus stop, I stared out at the darkening sky. My journey was no longer about hurt feelings. It was about survival. And I feared the real battle was only beginning. The car rolled to a stop in front of a mansion, so large it looked more like a museum than a home. My stomach tightened as I stepped out. The manicured lawns stretched endlessly, the windows gleamed like glass shields, and the front door rose tall and intimidating. This was the kind of house people dream of, but standing before it, I felt no warmth. It was big, yes, but lifeless. The door opened before I could knock. Cassandra rushed out, her once glamorous appearance disheveled. Her designer dress was wrinkled, her hair tangled, and the sparkle that had danced in her eyes just weeks before was gone. She clung to me as if she were drowning. "Oh, Mom, thank God you came," she sobbed, burying her face against my shoulder. I stood stiff in her embrace. My arms wanted to hold her, but my heart resisted. I wasn't here for her forgiveness or even her safety. I was here for Mark and Lily. Still, I let her cling to me, if only for a moment. Inside, the mansion smelled of new paint and expensive polish. Yet it felt cold, hollow, as though not a single memory had been made within its walls. The interior was spotless, filled with expensive furniture and abstract art. Every piece looked as though it had been chosen by a decorator, not a family. There were no children's toys scattered on the floor, no framed school pictures on the walls, nothing that spoke of love or belonging. It was a house made to impress, not to live in. Cassandra led me into the living room, her steps hurried and uneven. She glanced at the windows as though she expected eyes to be watching us from outside. "They don't stop," she whispered, her hands trembling. "Cars slow down on the street, calls come at all hours, and sometimes I swear I hear people outside at night. They know where I am. They're waiting." I studied her face. The confidence she once wore like armor had crumbled into fear. "Who are they?" I asked. Her gaze darted to the corners of the room before she answered. "Investors. Dangerous ones. They gave me money in a scheme that wasn't mine to take. I thought I was clever, but I was only a pawn. Now they want it back, and they'll use the kids to make sure I pay." Cassandra's voice dropped to a whisper. "They watch everything. I've caught men sitting in cars down the street, engines running for hours. I've heard clicks on the phone line. Even when I go to the grocery store, I feel eyes on me. They know I lied. They think I still have more of their money hidden away." I felt my skin prickle as I glanced toward the wide windows and tall ceilings. The mansion suddenly seemed less like a home and more like a stage, every open space a possible entry point. My chest tightened with unease. "And the children?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. "That's what terrifies me most. They're my weakness, and those people know it. They've already hinted that if I don't cooperate, they'll come after Mark and Lily. Mom, I don't know how to stop them." Her words were a knife twisting in my heart. She had thrown me out with the coldest of words, but now she begged for protection like a child herself. I wanted to scold her, to remind her of the cruelty she had shown me, yet the thought of my grandchildren facing harm left no room for anger. A sharp knock thundered against the front door, jolting both of us where we sat. It wasn't gentle or polite. It was heavy, demanding, the kind of knock that makes your stomach drop. Cassandra's face drained of color. "They've found me," she whispered, her hands clutching mine so tightly my fingers ached. The room grew still, the silence pressing down as the knock came again, louder this time. My breath caught in my throat. Every story Cassandra had told about cars outside, about strange calls, about men watching from the street, they all rushed back to me in a single wave of dread. She scrambled to her feet, panic written across every movement. "What do we do? What if they force their way in?" I rose slowly, my knees stiff, my heart pounding as if I were 20 years younger and about to face a storm. The children were not in the house, thank heaven, but I still felt the need to shield Cassandra. The doorknob rattled. The sound echoed through the cavernous living room like a warning. Cassandra's eyes darted to me, wide with terror. Mom, it's them. I know it's them. The door swung open with a sudden force, and Cassandra stumbled back, gasping. I braced myself to see strangers in dark suits, but instead, a figure from my past stepped across the threshold. Walter. The name slipped from my lips before I could stop it. There he was, an old friend of my late husband, Robert. A man who had shared our dinner table, who had comforted me at the funeral, who had always carried himself as a trusted part of our family circle. He looked almost the same, neat suit, steady eyes, a faint smile. But in this moment, that smile chilled me. Cassandra's gaze darted between us, confusion and fear mixing on her face. You know him? Walter's eyes landed on me with a weight I couldn't shake. Of course she knows me. We go back a long time, don't we, Lillian? His tone carried no warmth, only possession. My chest tightened. Betrayal by a daughter was one kind of wound. But betrayal stretching back decades, from a man I had trusted like family, cut even deeper. Whatever danger Cassandra had unleashed, Walter was now standing at the center of it. Walter stepped further inside, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. He carried himself with a confidence that didn't belong to a guest, but to someone who thought he owned the room. "You think this money is yours, Cassandra?" he said, his voice calm but cutting. "It isn't. You stumbled into something much bigger than a lottery win. Your father and I built the foundation for it long ago." I stared at him, disbelief fighting with anger. "Robert had nothing to do with this," I snapped. My husband had been many things, steady, cautious, even dull at times, but never dishonest. Walter tilted his head, his smile sharpening. "Oh, Lillian, you never really knew him, did you? Robert was brilliant with numbers. He and I created a network, a system for keeping certain investors' money away from the eyes of the government. He didn't tell you because he wanted to keep you safe. But when he died, the key to that fortune was lost, or so I thought." Cassandra's lips parted in shock. "You mean, I never won anything?" Walter let out a low laugh. "You think a ticket changed your life? No, child. It was Robert's secrets that did." My knees felt weak, and I lowered myself into one of the stiff armchairs, my mind spinning. Cassandra stood frozen, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing without words. For a moment, I saw the child she once was, scared, confused, desperate for someone to protect her. I looked at Walter, a man who had been at my husband's side for decades. He had toasted at our anniversary dinners, whispered prayers at Robert's graveside, and held my hand as though he were shielding me from grief. To learn now that he had been part of a hidden world, and that Robert himself might have been tangled in it, shook me to my core. "You're lying," I said, though even as I spoke, doubt gnawed at me. Could Robert have hidden so much from me? Walter leaned closer, his voice dropping. "I don't need to lie, Lillian. You have something I need, something Robert left behind. The final piece. And until I have it, your family will never be safe." Cassandra gasped, tears welling in her eyes. My heart clenched. The betrayal I had felt at that bus stop seemed small compared to this. Decades of secrets, now crashing down on us all. Walter paced the length of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. He looked perfectly at ease while Cassandra and I sat frozen, our worlds shattering with every word he spoke. "Robert and I built something hidden," he began, his voice smooth, as though explaining a business deal rather than threatening a family. "We created a private fund for wealthy investors who preferred to keep their assets away from the eyes of banks and governments. It wasn't legal, but it was lucrative. Robert handled the numbers, I handled the people. For years it ran without flaw." I shook my head firmly. "No. Robert sold life insurance. He was an honest man." Walter's smile tightened. "He was brilliant with figures, Lillian. He kept the household steady because he had a gift you never saw. To you, he was a devoted husband. To me, he was a partner who could turn numbers into gold. When he died, the system collapsed. The codes, the keys, the access, all gone. Investors blamed me. But then he turned toward Cassandra. Your daughter stumbled onto part of it. She thought she'd won a lottery. In truth, she unlocked only a fraction of what Robert left behind. Cassandra shook her head violently. No. I scratched a ticket. I saw the numbers with my own eyes. Walter chuckled, a dry sound that made the air feel heavier. You didn't win anything, Cassandra. The numbers on that ticket weren't luck. They were part of Robert's design. He hid fragments of the access codes in places only those closest to him would ever notice. A recipe, a vest, even a string of numbers disguised as a lottery win. You thought fortune smiled on you, but you were simply holding a piece of your father's puzzle. Her lips parted, eyes wide, as the truth began to sink in. So, all of it was never mine? It was never complete, Walter corrected, his voice sharp. You accessed one account, a smaller pool set aside as a test. That's the 33 million you've been flaunting. But the true fortune, the one investors are demanding back, remains locked away. And without the final key, no one can reach it. I sat there, torn between anger and disbelief. Could Robert really have built such a secret life? And worse, had he left me unknowingly holding the last piece that dangerous men were now willing to kill for? Walter's gaze shifted from Cassandra to me, sharp and unrelenting. Robert was clever, but he was also sentimental. He wouldn't trust me with everything. He would have left the last part somewhere you could find it, Lillian. Something only you would understand. My mouth went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. You do, Walter pressed, stepping closer. Think about it. The man you spent 50 years with. He'd want you to be the safeguard. Not me. Not your daughter. You. Where did he hide the last piece? I shook my head, my heart hammering in my chest. Even if I knew, I'd never give it to you. Walter's calm smile returned, though his eyes burned with impatience. You will. Because if you don't, those investors won't stop. They'll come for Cassandra. They'll come for your grandchildren. I can't hold them back forever. Cassandra let out a broken sob, clutching her arms around herself. Mama, please. If you know anything, say it. I clenched my fists, torn between fear and fury. Walter wanted me to break. He wanted me to admit what even I wasn't sure of. But somewhere deep inside, I felt Robert had indeed left something for me, something hidden in plain sight. Walter's words echoed in my mind, colliding with memories of Robert that I had long buried under grief. He had always been a man of quiet habits, holding on to little keepsakes that mattered only to us. My engagement ring, his father's pocket watch, the corsage from our first dance, small treasures he refused to part with. And then I remembered the wooden box. It had sat on his bedside table for years, carved with delicate patterns, its surface worn smooth by time. Inside were our love letters, his handwritten notes, and mementos of the life we had built together. I hadn't opened it in months, maybe years, because it hurt too much to look back. My chest tightened. Could he have hidden something there? Something that was never meant for Cassandra, never meant for Walter, but only for me. I kept my face still, but inside my heart was racing. If the final piece existed, and if it was indeed in that box, then I was holding the fate of my family in my hands. Robert had trusted me without my knowledge. And now Walter, with all his threats, was demanding I betray that trust. Walter leaned closer, his voice dropping into a near growl. You know where it is, Lillian. Don't waste my time. Every minute you hesitate, the people I answer to grow more impatient. And when they lose patience, they don't just knock on doors, they break them down. Cassandra clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Mom, please. If Dad left something, you have to give it to him. I can't protect the kids. I can't protect myself. You're the only one who can stop this. Her desperation should have softened me, but instead it carved deeper wounds. Just days earlier, this same daughter had thrown me out without mercy. Now she wept at my side, begging for the very support she had cast aside. Grief for Robert twisted inside me, mixing with disbelief. Had the man I loved truly been part of such dangerous dealings? Anger burned in me at Walter's smug certainty, fear clawed at me for my grandchildren, and sorrow ached in every corner of my heart. But above it all, a new feeling began to grow, a resolve I hadn't known I still possessed. I would not be bullied. Not by Walter. Not by anyone. I straightened in my chair, meeting Walter's stare without flinching. You talk about Robert like he was just another business partner, but he was my husband. He loved his family. If he left anything behind, it wasn't for you. It was for us. Walter's eyes narrowed. Don't fool yourself. Robert may have loved you, but he loved control even more. He didn't trust anyone. Not fully. That's why he split the codes. He thought he was protecting his legacy. But all he did was create a mess that only I can clean up. His words hit like a blade, but I refused to show weakness. Cassandra sobbed beside me, her fear rising with every second. Yet in that moment, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Robert might have kept secrets, but I would not let Walter twist them into weapons. For the first time since stepping into that mansion, I realized the power wasn't entirely his. He needed me. He believed I held the final piece, and that gave me leverage. The fear inside me didn't vanish, but it shifted, no longer crippling, but driving me. If I was going to protect my family, I had to use that to my advantage. I lowered my eyes, not in defeat, but to hide the spark of realization burning within me. The wooden box. It had been with me all along, tucked away in the attic of Cassandra's old house, untouched since Robert's passing. If there was a final piece, that was where it would be. But Walter didn't need to know that, not yet. His arrogance was his weakness, and my silence would be my shield. I lifted my head and looked at him steadily. If Robert left anything for me, I'll decide how to handle it. You don't get to dictate what I do with my husband's legacy. For the first time, I saw a flicker of unease cross Walter's face. He had expected me to crumble, to hand over answers in fear. Instead, I met him with the strength of a wife who had weathered decades of hardship and a mother who would not let her family be destroyed. Beside me, Cassandra whispered, "Mom," her voice trembling between hope and despair. I reached for her hand. "Don't worry," I said softly, though my eyes never left Walter. "Your father may have left us secrets, but he also left me with enough courage to use them." Walter's shadow loomed over us, his confidence radiating like heat. But beneath his controlled tone, I sensed his urgency. He needed me. The investors he served were breathing down his neck, and every second he didn't have the final piece was a second closer to his own downfall. I steadied my breathing and spoke with a firmness I didn't know I still had. "If you want what Robert left behind, there will be conditions." His head tilted, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Conditions? You're in no position to bargain, Lillian." "You're wrong," I replied, my voice steady. "You need me more than I need you. If I disappear or destroy what I have, your investors will turn on you. And they won't be gentle." His jaw tightened, though he masked it quickly. Cassandra gasped at my boldness, clutching my sleeve as if she feared I'd gone too far. But I held Walter's gaze. I had spent too long letting others dictate my worth. Not anymore. "You want the last piece?" I said firmly. "First, you guarantee the safety of Cassandra and my grandchildren. They leave here untouched, out of your reach, before we discuss anything further." Walter gave a short laugh, though there was no humor in it. "You think you can dictate terms to me? To the men I answer to? Do you have any idea what they're capable of?" I leaned forward, my voice low but unwavering. "Do you have any idea what I'm capable of, Walter? I may be old, but I've survived loss, hardship, and betrayal. Don't underestimate me. If Robert trusted me with something, I'll burn it before I hand it to you, unless I know my family is safe." His eyes narrowed. He studied me in silence, perhaps expecting fear to creep back into my expression. Instead, I met him with calm defiance. Finally, he sighed, the arrogance faltering for the first time. "You've learned to play hard, Lillian. Fine. I'll make the call." He pulled out his phone, stepping toward the window as he dialed. His voice dropped to a controlled murmur, issuing instructions I couldn't fully hear. Cassandra squeezed my hand, whispering frantically, "Mom, what if he's lying?" I whispered back, "Then we make sure he doesn't get what he wants." Walter ended the call, his expression grim. They'll be on a plane by dawn. But if you cross me, Lillian, they won't make it far. Walter slipped his phone back into his pocket and turned to me with a smirk. There. Your daughter and her children will be escorted to safety. Satisfied. I folded my arms, refusing to let his tone intimidate me. Words aren't enough. I want proof. A message. A call. Something that tells me they're truly on their way out of danger. For the first time, irritation flickered across his face. You're pushing your luck, Lillian. Luck has nothing to do with it, I shot back. I have the one thing you want, and you won't get it unless I know my family is beyond your reach. His jaw tightened, but he pulled the phone out again, dialing with sharp, clipped words. After a tense pause, he held the device out to Cassandra. Your children are being collected. Speak. Cassandra's voice trembled. Mark? Lily. A faint, sleepy voice came through the line. Mom. Relief flooded her face, tears spilling down her cheeks. She handed the phone back, her whole body shaking. Walter's smirk returned. Now, Lillian, it's your turn. The key. Where is it? I met his eyes, calm but unyielding. Not yet. You'll get it when I say so. Walter's patience was thinning. Enough games, Lillian. We leave tonight. Take me to it. Cassandra's eyes darted to me, pleading. Mom, if you know where it is, just tell him. I shook my head firmly. No. If Robert left something for me, it's not meant to be rushed. We'll go, but on my terms. Walter's lips curved into a tight smile. Your terms? You're brave, I'll give you that. But don't confuse bravery with power. Still, he motioned to the driver waiting outside. Within minutes, Cassandra and I were ushered back into the sleek black sedan, Walter settling opposite us. The hum of the engine filled the silence as the city lights gave way to the long stretch of highway. Walter leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. Where exactly are we headed, Lillian? To Wilmington, I replied calmly. Robert's things are still there. If he left a final piece, that's where it will be. He studied me for a long moment, as if weighing whether I was leading him into a trap. I kept my gaze steady, though my pulse raced. Every mile brought us closer to Robert's secrets, and closer to the moment I would have to outwit the man sitting across from me. The ride back to Wilmington stretched into the early hours of the morning. By the time the sedan pulled into the familiar driveway of Cassandra's old house, my bones ached, but my mind was sharp. The sight of the split-level home, with its sagging back deck and faded paint, stirred memories of simpler days, days when Robert was alive and the family still felt whole. Walter wasted no time. Inside, he ordered, his tone clipped. I led the way, each step heavier than the last. The air inside smelled faintly of dust and mothballs, as though time itself had been waiting for this night. Walter's footsteps followed close behind, echoing off the walls like a warning. At the pull of a cord, the attic ladder creaked down. The narrow steps groaned under my weight as I climbed, Walter's presence pressing at my back. The space above was cluttered with boxes, old furniture, and the ghosts of a lifetime. In the far corner, I spotted it, the small wooden box, carved with familiar patterns, worn smooth from years of Robert's touch. My throat tightened as I reached for it, the weight of love, betrayal, and fear all colliding in that single moment. I lowered myself onto the attic floor, the wooden box resting on my lap. Walter loomed above me, his eyes fixed on it like a starving man eyeing his first meal in weeks. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its pages worn from years of use, and tucked beneath it, a small flash drive. My breath caught in my chest. Robert's handwriting covered the first page, a note addressed to me. My vision blurred with tears as I traced his familiar script. Walter crouched low, his voice sharp. Give it to me. I shook my head slowly. No, not yet. Don't test me, Lillian. His patience was razor-thin. I slid the journal back into the box and held up the flash drive. This isn't just numbers, Walter. Robert left this for me, not for you. If you want it, you'll hear his words first. And if you try to stop me, I'll destroy it right here. Walter's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists, but he didn't move. He needed what I held. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I realized the balance of power had shifted, toward me. I inserted the flash drive into a small tablet I had carried in my purse, praying it still worked. The screen flickered, and then Robert's face appeared. Older, thinner, but unmistakably him. My breath caught, and for a moment the attic faded away. I was simply a wife seeing her husband again. "My dearest Lillian," his recorded voice began, steady and calm. "If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. And if Walter is standing there, then the time has come for the truth." Walter stiffened, his mask of confidence cracking. Robert continued, "Walter was never the partner I wanted him to be. While I worked to build something honest, he siphoned money for himself, creating hidden accounts. I tracked everything, every transaction, every lie. This drive contains proof of his thefts, the very money he convinced others I helped manage. If Walter is desperate now, it's because his lies are closing in on him." Walter's face was drained of color. The journal shook slightly in my hands as I realized what Robert had done. He had left me the key, not to unlock treasure, but to expose the man who had haunted us for decades. Walter's hands trembled as Robert's words spilled from the tablet. His once smug expression twisted into something raw. Fear, anger, humiliation all tangled together. "You planned this," he muttered, almost to himself. "Even in death, he outplayed me." Robert's voice pressed on, leaving no room for denial. "Walter, I knew your greed would catch up to you. I couldn't stop you in life, but I could make sure you'd never touch my family again. If Lillian is watching this, it means she now has the evidence to destroy you." Walter's composure cracked completely. He lurched forward, but I raised the flash drive high. "One step closer," I warned, "and I'll crush it beneath my heel. You'll have nothing left but the wrath of those investors you've been cheating." For the first time since entering that mansion, Walter backed down. His breathing came harsh and ragged, his eyes darting as though searching for an escape route. Without another word, he turned, his footsteps pounding down the stairs until the front door slammed behind him. The attic fell silent. Cassandra clung to me, trembling, her tears wetting my sleeve. Walter was gone, but the scars he left behind remained carved into our lives. When the echoes of Walter's departure faded, Cassandra sank to the floor, her sobs shaking her whole body. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she cried, clutching at my hands. "I thought I was strong. I thought money would fix everything. Instead, I let it destroy me, and I hurt you most of all." Her face was streaked with tears, her voice raw. "When I told you to leave, I thought I didn't need you anymore. I was so blinded by the lifestyle, the attention, the illusion that I was untouchable. I forgot the only reason I'd survived the hardest years of my life was because of you. And now I've dragged us all into danger because of my arrogance." Her words cut deep, not because they were untrue, but because I had longed to hear them. The betrayal had nearly broken me, yet hearing her confession, I saw not the selfish woman who threw me out, but the frightened child I had once held in my arms. I stroked her hair, torn between anger and compassion. "Cassandra," I whispered, "money doesn't change who we are, it only reveals it. And you must decide who you'll be from this day forward." I held Robert's journal close, its worn cover warm beneath my palms. In that moment, I realized what he had truly left me. Not riches, not secret codes to hidden fortunes. He had left me strength, the foresight to face betrayal, the courage to stand against fear, and the reminder that love was worth more than any account filled with numbers. Page after page in his familiar handwriting wasn't about business or schemes. It was about us. The quiet nights on the porch. The way he admired the way I hummed while cooking. The promises we had whispered when life felt unbearable. His final words were not instructions, but comfort. "If you are reading this, Lillian, trust your heart. It will guide you when everything else feels lost." Tears blurred my vision, but this time they weren't born of grief alone. They were mixed with pride. Robert had not abandoned me to chaos. He had armed me with truth. His legacy was not measured in dollars, but in resilience. I turned to Cassandra, who sat trembling beside me. "Your father didn't leave us wealth to flaunt. He left us wisdom to survive. That is worth more than any fortune." The house was still, the storm had passed, but I knew life would never be the same. Walter's shadow might linger, yet his power over us was broken. Cassandra sat beside me, silent now, her eyes lowered in shame. For once, I didn't see her arrogance. I saw the heavy cost of greed written across her face. I stood, shoulders straightening with a strength I hadn't felt in years. I lost my home the day you threw me out, Cassandra. But tonight, I found something greater. I found my voice. I found my worth. And I will never let anyone take that from me again. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. There was no need for more words. The lesson had already carved itself into her heart. I turned to the camera in my mind. The audience I knew needed this message. Wealth may glitter, but it can also blind. Family, love, and integrity are treasures no amount of money can replace. Before we close, I want to hear from you. What lesson did you take from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder about the true cost of greed.